Hello everyone, and that is correct. We are going back to Simulanka today, or more precisely simply playing a Simulanka deck today. Now, if you happen to be a long-time viewer of the channel, one of the rare who do watch my videos consistently, you might be aware that I have played Simulanka deck once in the past, and I held some strong opinions regarding the Simulanka deck. Well, Simulanka decks in general, and look at that, we just lighting change there in the room. Anyway, I've held some strong opinions about Simulanka deck engine in the past, and well, since making that first video, I have not played Simulanka decks at all. Until this latest patch, where I'd say we finally gotten enough changes and new cards in the game that the Simulanka deck has gone from being the absolute worst bottom of the barrel way of playing this game to being a decent game, a decent way to build your deck. It went from being like the trash at the bottom of the barrel to being I can try it out once type of deck. Anyway, let's look at today's deck. And here we have today's deck. If you are wondering, we are going to get to the characters today a little later, since of course this is a Simulanka deck, we are concentrating on the Simulanka cards. Now in the latest patch, specifically because two cards were added, which I consider to be, hold on, these actually work. I mean, the other one right here, of course, directly works only for Simulanka summons, but the other can be used in other decks as well, but works very well for Simulanka summons. Which is why I finally got the motivation to play Simulanka deck once again. Now, of course, because we are concentrating on Simulanka, and I wanted to bring some of that same idea as my old Simulanka deck, we are kind of going for the very strong toy cards with this deck, though this time the only way to buff the toy cards damage is the Gift of Goddess Prophecy, the Constellation Metropole Elemental Burst effect, and not the Fell Dragon, but the Broken Sea, the new event card. And you can see we are using almost all possible Simulanka cards. Constellation Metropole, of course. There's no need to play two copies of this card. We only have one copy of this card simply because we want the possible Elemental Burst effect to buff the toy card. But otherwise, you can see we are playing double Broken Sea. This is the new card. All your Simulanka summons +1 usage +1 effect. Very good card for your Simulanka decks, because this thing actually can create some decent value, especially when comboed with the Calligraphy Tavern, which randomly activates one of your Simulanka summons end phase effect. And the other new card, the Stalker's Watch, Sidlali's signature weapon. This is a very good card for very specific decks. It is a 1 cost, and once per round it gives you a 1 cost discount to cards not in your initial deck. Meaning, the moment you play this card, you immediately get that -1 discount to your next card not in your initial deck, and well, all of the Simulanka summons are cards not in the initial deck, and they are all 1 cost cards, meaning that the Starcaller's Watch works very well together with the Simulanka summons. And of course it also can give you the slight damage bonus, so there's that benefit as well. Other than the obvious Simulanka cards in this deck, you can see we are running some hefty draw power with Countdown to Showdown, mostly for round 1. But other than that, you can see we are kind of relying on getting the, I think it is the Paper Frog, which gives us more draw power, which is why we don't have that much draw cards in the deck, but we do have the Lost Legacies in sand, mostly for round 1 or at the end of the game if you need to get the blessing from Am for some extra dice. Notable parts about the deck if you want to try it yourself. I have Varukasha's Glow for some extra healing. You could very well use the free version. I have the 1-cost version specifically for the bit of extra healing. Sunyata Flower is here to discount after, for example, playing Siege Dispensary Weekend. Sunyata Flower is to play another heftier cost card from the all of the Simulanka cards are 2-cost cards, so Sunyata Flower is here for that. Blessing of Am, of course, for some extra die. Fell Dragon, because why not? Also, I'm still very mad about the fact that the Fell Dragon is not considered a Simulanka summon. If the Fell Dragon was considered a Simulanka summon, it would, like, that change alone would make Simulanka deck from being a decent deck to actually being a good, viable option to play. But because Fell Dragon is not a Simulanka summon, there's we only have 1 copy of it for the end game, helping us deal some actual damage. Only have Hot Spring O'Clock for some healing. I mean, we are going to have a lot of summons, so it's a good healing card to have. Notable part, which I kind of forgot when making this initial deck. Now that the Ultimate Surfing Buddy has been changed to be combat action, it actually works very well for this deck, because you can use it to stall and activate your Simulanka summons to either get free switches, HP, or draw more cards. So Ultimate Surfing Buddy would be a very good addition to this deck. Probably take out Sunyata Flower if you want to do minimal changes, but I failed to consider it because when I made this deck I was so concentrated on everything Simulanka related that I completely forgot the card even existed. But that's enough about the action cards, they are nothing new. As for the character cards, I decided to go for all Catalyst characters. If you want to try this deck, well, if you want to try Simulanka deck these days, Starcaller, I would say this is a must-have card if you play Simulanka decks. And of course, because it's a Catalyst, you want to use at least 2 Catalyst characters, so you can equip both copies of the weapon. We are running all Catalyst characters, so we can put the weapon on any one of them. Of course, you can also see we have the freeze reaction as our primary source of annoying the opponent. You do not plan to win, of course. Well, now I'm getting a bunch of thoughts in my head and in my mouth at the same time. We have freeze because 1, we can stop our opponent's game plan. Funny enough, these days almost no deck runs Tada. So freeze is very effective if you want to make a slower, if your deck requires a slower pace of the game, freeze is the way to go. Nobody has freeze counters these days, so trust me, just freeze your opponent. Nobody is running Tada unless they have Chlorid or in some rare cases Hu Tao burst spam decks. Those aren't really common these days, at least from my experience. But anyway, freeze reaction to disrupt our opponent's plan, and also because the toy cards deal physical damage, we can shatter the opposing side's frozen characters with the freeze. Mona, you could have other, like for example, if you want to have even more slower game plan, even more healing, Kokomi could work here. We have Mona for that fast action from the passive skill, as well as the fact that Mona's summon disappears in 1 turn, so it's an easy way to get stacks for the Fell Dragon. Charlotte, mostly I picked Charlotte for the fact that she's a cryo catalyst, but also she got a little HP buff in the latest patch, so we have some of that extra HP. And Lanyan as our Anemo character, of course, because it makes freezing easier to have a Nemo character, and mostly because now we have a backup plan. We can also stack up the Lanyan's shields right there. They have no stack limit, so you can gather as many shields as you want to keep your team alive. After all, most of the healing in this deck does come from the... that shows it. Origami Hamster right here. But yes, the main point of the character cards, you don't need to use this combo, but what I say, freeze reaction is good, not only because of the shatter, but also because it disrupts the opponent's game plan and nobody runs Tada or any other freeze counter these days. And yeah, having characters that can help you like collect shields or heal your team, like this is relatively good. But the most important part is to have at least 2 catalyst characters. Everything else you can do whatever you want. But once again, Simulanka is a slow deck, slow paced game plan. You don't want to make an aggressive deck with Simulanka cards. But yeah, I think that's enough explanation about the deck. We are now going to get into the replays. Now, since Simulanka decks tend to be, like said, a little slower, you could very well say they are simply stall decks. These matches are going to be a little longer, so I'm going to let the replays run a little faster. After all, most of the cards are nothing new. The Simulanka cards have existed for a long time. The Simulanka engine has existed for a long time. There's really nothing much to say. Game plan for this deck: either start with Mona if your opponent is running a non-aggressive deck. If your opponent is running an aggressive deck and you expect one of your characters to be taken out round 1, start with Charlotte and just spam the skill at least on one character. But most of the time, starting with Mona and going for 1 skill plus setup is what you want to do, as I'm doing right here. As for the Simulanka summons, at the start of the game, of course, you want to prioritize Paper Frog and Flying Squirrel over the Origami Hamster, since you probably haven't taken that much damage. In addition to that, once you get the... what is it? The Calligraphy... yeah, Calligraphy Tavern. Once you get the Calligraphy Tavern on the field, you need to remember this thing activates randomly. It's one of your Simulanka summons randomly activated when you declare the end of your round. This means, once again, the Origami Hamster, which by default only has 1 usage. The Calligraphy Tavern effect is usually wasted in your 1 usage card, so ideal gameplay you get to combo the Calligraphy Tavern with the new Simulanka card. I already forgot the name, but the Broken Island thing. You usually want to first play the Broken Island, then the Calligraphy... you want to play the Broken Island before ending your round when you have Calligraphy Tavern on the field. Of course, the exception is if you want to go, for example, toy card damage spam, which honestly I don't remember if I go for in these games we get to see today, but it is something you can absolutely do. And also, like I said, I am slightly going for the toy card meme deck that I tried in the past, with the idea that oftentimes in these replays you get to see me specifically try to get the toy card to have as many damage stacks as possible. Of course, with this version of the deck, it is rather limited and demanding the amount of stacks you can get. Also in this very specific match, my Sunyara Flower got me that Narukami Shrine, which I'm quite hesitant to get rid of. After all, it's perhaps the best location card currently in the game. I mean, +2 dice each round is very, very good. My opponent, not the most common version of the Apep normal deck, seeing that they are running healing locations. Of course, they are 2-cost cards, so they do maximize the normal HP when discarded, along with, for example, Apep summons. There you get to see, we are once again kind of aiming for the toy card, getting as much damage as possible, but I kind of rushed it. You can see we have the Constellation Metropole +1 effect to toy card right there, so I should have waited a bit longer before playing another toy card, but it's no big deal. Also, as a reminder, though we already saw it there if you were paying attention to that, the Gift of Goddess of Prophecy, while it creates toy cards into your hand and the deck, it gives the +1 effect to all Simulanka summons you play, which is why we now have Origami Hamster that heals for 3 HP right there. Of course, it's very good, like Gift of Goddess of Prophecy. What I recommend with this version of the deck specifically, 1 stack for the toy card, so you have some source of actual damage. The other stack for your other Simulanka summons, either the squirrel or the frog ideally, because usually the hamster, after all, it is spent in 1 round. You often end up playing multiple hamsters if you actually need healing. Not to mention, this deck quite consistently is able to pull off Charlotte's Burst for more healing. And not to mention, we have the Hot Spring O'Clock, so Origami Hamster is not the most important summon to buff with the Gift of Goddess of Prophecy. Now we finally get into stacking up some shields from Lanyan. Of course, I'm starting to realize that Apep is going to get in the buff mode quite soon here, so I actually need to get something done. And we finally got the weapon here. And now Apep is in the buff mode. Quite scary considering they have 3 stacks of the nourishment there as well. I of course go for Lanyan to stack up those shields here. And we also play the weapon, of course. I play another toy card because I know I can get it to have more damage, and I'm trying to activate it with the Calligraphy Tavern here, like so. Once again, you can see I'm quite hesitant with the Narukami Shrine. I end on Lanyan because I can use Mona to freeze the Apep, which is why, of course, usually Lanyan is the character you want to keep alive, because she can create the shields, you can in that way protect herself, unlike Charlotte and Mona, who are... Well, Charlotte does have some self-sustainability with the burst healing, but... also, going for the 3rd summon there, not exactly smart from me. I shouldn't have played the flying square. I should have just taken the 50-50 for the double activation from the toy card for the damage. Not that Shinyari would have been taken out, they have the Favonius Cathedral after all, so the 4 damage coming from my summons would not have been enough. And anyway, we did get the double activation from the Calligraphy Tavern onto our toy card, so in a way it didn't matter, but playing the flying square there was kind of pointless, is what I'm saying here. But at least in that last interaction you got to saw the toy card is actually a relatively good source of summon damage in this deck. As suspected, Lanyard gets taken out early, and as I said before, we get Mona safe off-field for this very specific reason. Now, of course, if we were living in an ideal world, I would have the Fell Dragon in my hand, but of course I do not. I play a toy card. I think that was with the... not even with them. Also, one thing here. The Constellation Metropole, after you do a skill, it is free to play the next toy card. Not a Simulanka summon, a toy card specifically. So if you want to optimize your Stalker's Watch usage, first do a skill, then play a toy card, then play another Simulanka summon. That way you maximize the value from Stalker's Watch and Constellation Metropole discount effects. Because if you didn't know, the Metropole's effect does take priority over the weapon if you play a toy card specifically. At least also here you get to see we played the... of course it doesn't show up there yet. We played the Broken Sea to get rid of the Narukami Shrine. And you can see it buffed all of our Simulanka summons right there. And look at that, we have another 2 damage, 3 usage toy card this time. We heal the max HP and first Mona to make sure that firstly the reflection would take out Nova. I don't think they get any HP for it, yeah. And then we have the toy card to either take out Xinyan or do big damage to a Pep. Now my opponent of course does give up Xinyan here. And then it's starting to look quite sketchy since Apep with the buff mode against just one character unable to do any reactions is quite scary. We get some good dice at the very least. We go for the Blessing of M for some extra hoping for some extra HP, and we happen to get a hamster, a very good pull right there. Very lucky, that one. And I realize, hold on, I have double Calligraphy Tavern. Even if I do a skill from Mona, a Pep will still do enough damage to take her out, so the only way I can possibly win this game is by having Origami Hamster to activate. But we first use the Broken Sea to increase its healing effect so that the Apep cannot take it out. And of course now it also has 2 usage. And we got lucky, the second Calligraphy Tavern activates the Origami Hamster. And now my opponent cannot take out Mona, after all my summons activate before theirs. And I even have the Varukasha's Glow. And would you look at that, my summons take out the Apep. Let's get into the next game. Now in this matchup we have an Auroron Electro Charge deck. Of course quite difficult matchup since we are kind of tuned to go against specifically AoE damage, considering Charlotte's Burst and... no, hold on, what am I talking? We have not tuned the deck against AoE damage, we have tuned it against single target damage, since we have Lanyard Shields and only Charlotte's Burst for AoE healing. Everything else is single target healing in the deck. You can see in this matchup I start with Charlotte because I know that opponent's deck can do a lot of damage. In the end, since my hand cards weren't quite ideal, and I don't know why, but they ended their round, probably because actually this is a replay, we can go and check. very odd that they didn't go for Mizuki's skill here. I mean, I kind of understand since they wouldn't have gotten anything, but... Well, I kind of understand with these cards, but this is still a rather interesting round 1, only doing a Mona skill and nothing else, but I'm assuming since they had to tune cards, well, they did play that food there, but they had very bad dice at the start.
Nearer to the action is closer to the truth.
So yeah, I switch characters there with the idea of avoiding Mizuki swirls, but you can see we go straight back to Charlotte because the Charlotte burst is the only thing we have against AoE damage. And we get to do some setup with the Forest Bless.
Hold that pose!
Also, a quick reminder, Forest Blessing is the #1 best Simulanka card you want to get. This is the one you want to keep at the start of the game. This is the one you want to get as soon as possible, because it creates random Simulanka summon, excluding the toy card, every time you do an elemental reaction, and as well when you first play it. So this is the thing that gives you a bunch of the summons very easily. Here, for whatever reason, we just saw that they have Mizuki talent, so they didn't play it. I mean, admittedly, I sometimes forget to play talent cards, but considering they only had that many cards in hand, they should have definitely remembered it. But we do not critique our opponents too much. We go for the Suniera Flower, looking for cards to tune mostly. After all, we ideally would have gone for Charlotte Burst this round. And I kind of still can if I am willing to tune, but I am not willing to tune, so we just go for the Lanyan skill.
I'm free.
Of course, we aren't able to fully avoid Mizuki's second swirl here if we want to do the skill from Lanyan. We go for the Defiled. I knew it would take one of the weapons at the bottom of the deck, but sometimes you have to make sacrifices like that. I do go for the skill because at least I get the shields to somewhat protect Lanyan. And now we gotta end our round on Lanyan, who has no element on her, so Mizuki gets nothing to swirl. While I can of course swirl that Cryo right there and create a bit more shields with Lanyan. There's some funny potential here to go for a high damage toy card.
Time to relax.
But my opponent actually does get the swirl off. Unfortunately, because I completely forgot how Auroran's skill works. Also, I think this is a good chance to mention this. I don't think I'm gonna make any Auroran dedicated video for him, because only thing unique about Auroran skill is really the passive skill. Like this, there's really like nothing else that inspires me to do anything. Like Auroran, if you play Electro Charge, he is the best character for Electro Charge. For anything else, well, I don't know. Like, he's good for Electro Charge and Electro Charge alone. I don't really like... I had no good ideas as to how to use Auroran in a deck that would be new. Like, what my opponent playing is a deck that could have existed before, just replace Auroran with Fischl and it would be almost as good. Auroran, of course, like I just said, he is the best character for Electro Charge decks, but he doesn't inspire anything new. if you get what I mean.
Dancing in the wind. Oh, darkness.
Burst
closing.
buffed by the Stalkaller's Watch takes out Mizuki here.
Be free.
And of course, now that I'm in a scenario where I'm only trying to keep Lanyan alive, my opponent's deck is starting to lose momentum, because I'm starting to concentrate all my efforts on one character. And look at that, I got lucky with the toy card activation from the Calligraphy Tavern. Mona gets taken out, so no more reactions for my opponent. So even though I'm concentrating all my resources on Lanyan, Mona gets to stay alive. Well, this match mostly got to show you that there's some real survivability against, you know, more aggressive decks, even though my opponent didn't play the Mizuki talent at the optimal time, but I doubt that would have changed much in the end,
As the stars foretold.
I would have anyway ended up with
Be free.
spamming Lanyan.
Shadows of fate.
Perhaps you find it odd I went to Mona here when I had the efficient switches anyway. I might as well go for Mona here to get
My
that
reckoning.
reaction for extra shields. I mean, the damage is anyway going to be almost identical whether I sit on Lanyan or Mona. I somewhat have fun with getting a toy card with big damage numbers once
Closing
again.
in.
But here oh yeah, they gave up. Right. Anyway, let's get into the last game of today. Now, this last game is actually quite interesting in a way, since I had to actually log in for this one. My opponent is of course playing what would be a very good counter to any slow-paced deck. The Hu Tao plus, what is it, the... I don't remember the name of the Saurian, but there's the normal attack technique Saurian. They basically combo Hu Tao with that technique and the Primordial Jade Spear for some big damage.
Shadows
Of course, they
fate.
can also use the slowness damage buff on top of that. In this matchup, like I said, I actually logged in. Like, I haven't played much with this deck, even though my opinion on Simulanka decks has changed. They are too slow paced for me. The funniest part about Simulanka is still getting that toy card which does 5 physical damage or more. But, well, I didn't play much with this deck, and as such, I'd say this matchup was the only one I actually hold on, need to lock in for this one. Need to take it a bit more seriously to have a chance. Well, we go for the usual bit of setup here. Usually I wouldn't go for this play. Usually what I would do here is to go for Lanyan and Lanyan skill. But, like if it was any other deck my opponent was playing. But because I had the weapon, because I had the possibility, and because I knew to counter this deck, to work to win against this deck, is what I'm saying here. To win this matchup, I need to also do setup. And what setup can I do with this deck? I can get free switches with the Flying Squirrel with Lanyan. So my number one plan here is to get Hydro on to Hu Tao to threaten a freeze, but I'm assuming my opponent with that deck does have the Da, so the freeze is merely a momentary setback. The freeze is not the answer in this matchup. That's my expectation here at the beginning. So what are my my initial game plan is to stack up Lanyan's shields while keeping Hydro on Hu Tao just in case. While collecting shields with Lanyan, I'm going to stack up efficient switches from the skill and from the Flying Squirrel, so that when my opponent tries to go for their sweep, I can just swap stall continuously. That is the game plan I have in mind here for this match. Because like mentioned, usually I would have just gone for with that round 1 setup that I had. If my opponent wasn't playing an aggressive deck, I would have just gone for Mona skill, Lanyard skill, because I got the Forest Blessing for only 1 dice. And like, why would I not have gone for Lanyard skill round 1? But because of what this matchup is, I want to have like setup. I want to also stack up value for the round when my opponent plans to go in. And it was the Tangasaurus the technique. Also, if you didn't notice there, if you have double Forest Blessing, both of them activate every time you do an elemental reaction. For that reason specifically, you only ever really need 1 Forest Blessing. Like I said, this match was an exception to the rule because my first origami summon when playing the first Forest Blessing happened to be the hamster, and I get no value from the hamster at this stage in the game. Like mentioned, we just stack up the efficient switches and the shields from Lan Yan. I could have also gone for the Calligraphy Tavern here, but I decided to simply pay the Varukasha Glow onto Mona because I was expecting a Silonen burst, but they actually spent all of their dice instead. And once again, for the reason of stacking up the efficient switches, we played a Calligraphy Tavern to double activate the Flying Squirrel. Now, from the moment they played that Georesonance, I knew there was a chance they would go for. They would try to go for our sweep this round. I mean, they do have the technique, they have 2 stacks of the Golden Troops reward, Ateya on the field. But you can see here, they try to swap stall, but they probably now realize that, hold on, swap stalling when my opponent has efficient switches that many stacks, perhaps not the best idea. So they instead go for Kachina's skill here, and then follow it up with a free technique thanks to Ateya. I of course have no reason to keep Mona's fast action switch for any specific use here. Hu Tao already has Cryo, and even if they fast action switch to Hu Tao, they first want to do the skill before going for the technique. And when they go for the technique, it's a prepare skill, so I have plenty of time to freeze Hu Tao. But once again, like I mentioned, I'm expecting my opponent to have Tada in that deck. And I'm expecting, at this stage of the game, I have made the assumption, because my opponent swap stalled, I have made the assumption they do not have Tada in hand, at the very least. I still suspect they have Tada in the deck in general, because why the hell would you play that deck without Tada? It's the one free counter to freeze, why are you not using it? I don't know. But I'm still believing my opponent has Tada, but because they have swap stalled this round, my assumption is they do not have Tada in hand, and they are actually scared of the freeze. So what I do here is simply stall the game. Of course I do realize I cannot just, swap around. I have to do damage at some point. And now that my opponent only has 2 dice, Ateya has been spent, their 3 switches have been spent, I go for some toy card damage here finally.
Let me scroll.
Along with Mona skill, of course, to get that guaranteed swirl. They only have 1 dice. I mean, even if they have 2 Geo dice, they would only be able to activate the technique once, and with this amount of protection, I should be completely fine. And Calligraphy Tavern activates toy cards, so we get to break their shields here. They do go for the skill, but don't go for anything else. So the round ends and, well, another quite similar one begins. Now we get the interesting part of the game. I have no longer any free switches here, and I'm on Mona, so I'm practically forced to, you know, make an action here instead of swap stalling. But I have a Fell Dragon with quite the good stacks here, so what my current game plan for this round is Lanian shields first, then threaten a freeze with Charlotte, end with playing Fell Dragon to threaten damage.
Coming!
So I'm once again trying to stall out the round.
Closing in!
But like I said, we were on Mona, we have the fast action, so we might as well take value from it by doing a skill from Lanian to get shields and a free switch. Now my opponent here is practically saving their setup. Here, because they switched to Hu Tao, I'm assuming that okay, they now have Dada in hand. I'm still going to go for Charlotte because, you know, the first freeze reaction and then the shatter from Dada would do good damage to Hu Tao, and we do have the Star Colors effect, and we have Blessing from Amn and, you know, summons to play. There's the possibility of
let's get this interview
snipe
started
here. But they swap stall
Let's
again.
hit the town!
This let me know there is no Dada in their hand. Actually, we can go check here. You can see no Dada in hand. I mean, everything else they need. Ball Princess Gamblers, the Saurus Crackers. They have everything else they need except Dada to counter the freeze. So I swap stall again. And they do the same.
It is as the stars foretold.
I go to Mona here. I was kind of planning to ending my round here because you can see Atheas have been spent. They only have 2 dice. Of course, like, I don't know what they have. Like cards in hand. So I play it for safe here, going for the Blessing of Am. Couple extra dice so I can threaten the freeze.
Let's get this interview
And
started.
at this stage, my opponent is fed up. And they give up. So, you know, this is how you win matchups with the Simulanka deck. Just stall the game until your opponent gets tired and they give up. This was in fact not the only match that ended like this. I had like in total I played like 2 Arena of Champions challenges to 5 wins with this deck. 3 games where my opponent simply gave up when I was stalling the game. So yeah, that was the Simulanka deck. Like mentioned, it is now decent instead of just garbage. Try it out if you like to have a more slow-paced game. Anyway, that's all for today. I see you all next time.